welcome back to my channel. Today I want to start the last kind of weekly vlog. It's not really a week anymore for October, so I'm gonna do some vlogging for the last couple of days now, and then also in this video you will get my monthly wrap up for October. So in the end I will tell you about all the books I've read so far, or this month rather. So I'm currently reading The Library of the Unwritten, and my goal is to definitely finish this before the month is over. I'm about 150 pages in, so I still have a bit to go, and work has been quite stressful, so I've not been reading that much the last couple of days. So we'll see whether I can turn it around or whether this will be a fail. And then on my TBR, the last book I have is Cemetery Boys. No, that's not right. My TBR is The Haunting of Hill House still, that I have not started yet. It's the last one of the books I had on my TBR. So I don't know whether I will be able to read this weekend or not, but maybe I just keep it for next year for Halloween. I don't know. We'll see. And then my audiobook is Cemetery Boys. I'm just a couple of hours in, maybe 2. So I don't think I will finish it this week. I don't even think I will listen to a lot of it this week. But yeah, I'm enjoying that so much right now. So I would highly recommend you check it out. The beginning was really strong. I love the characters. I think it has quite good humor, but it's also a kind of heartbreaking story. So yeah, just a very good balance so far. So yeah, I'm reading some great books. I hope that I can tell you all about that during the next 4 days. And yeah, stay tuned. So it's lunchtime, and today I'm just very cold and also very tired. So yeah, I'm working slowly but steadily, but I wish I could just go to bed. And the reason for that is my cat, who still thinks she needs to wake me up at like 5 in the morning. So yeah, great. So it is Friday today. We have 2 more days of October left. And again, yesterday I did not read anything. And I don't feel bad about it, to be honest. I got the movie, like the Blu-ray of Sweeney Todd. So we watched that last night and I had a great time. I love that movie so much. So yeah, there just wasn't time for reading. But today, I promise, I will read and I will keep you updated. So it is late afternoon on Friday now. I just finished editing my last reading vlog, and now I'm gonna take The Library of the Unwritten and head into the bathtub. Morning guys, today is the last day of the vlog. Today's the 31st of October and it is Saturday, so I hope that I can do a couple of interesting things for the vlog. Right now I'm starting my weekend off as always by cleaning my apartment, so I'll probably check back in with you when I'm done with that. Yesterday I managed to read about 40 something pages, which isn't great. But at least I was reading. The last week was just very, very busy with work, and I just had a hard time focusing my head on other things, so I probably won't finish The Library of the Unwritten today. I still have about 170 pages left, and I just don't want to force it. I'm still enjoying it a whole lot, but yeah, I just don't want to rush through it, if you know what I mean. And then also yesterday we watched Corpse Bride, which was lovely. It's just one of those movies I always like to watch before Halloween. And I hope maybe today we can watch The Rocky Horror Show. And also Tonight is the live show of the Dark Academics Book Club, where they'll be discussing We Have Always Lived in the Castle, which was a 5-star read for me, and then also Phantom of the Opera, which I did not read because I'm just not interested. So yeah, that should be fun, and I'm just gonna take you along. So we did a lot of baking and cooking today for my cooking channel. It's called Baking Cooking Fun, and we're preparing for December, where I want to put up a lot of recipes. So we recorded 2 of those today, and one's going to be our dinner soon. But now it's almost time for the Dark Academics Book Club live show. So yeah, I guess there won't be much else happening today, unfortunately, but yeah, this just fits my week kind of, because I just was way too busy to do anything, and I feel like I have read like, I don't know, maybe 10 pages today, something like that, so yeah. So that's it. That was my October reading vlog. Yesterday I managed to read up until page 206 in the Library of the Unwritten, and I'm loving it. I also have 10.5 hours left of Cemetery Boys on audiobook, and I'm loving it. So overall, I'm leaving this month with a very good feeling, you know, regarding my books, and I hope you had a great October as well, whether you were reading or not. And yeah, now we're going into November, last 2 months of the year, which is crazy, but that's how it works, I guess. So I hope you will stay tuned for the wrap-up part now. So welcome to this wrap-up part of the video, where I will tell you all about all the books I have read in October. So yeah, let's get into all the books. So the first book I finished in October was Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This is a kind of like a historical fiction book, but just because it was written in the 30s, so now it reads like historical fiction. And we're following a girl who doesn't even get a name, and she has not been very lucky in her life. She's very dependent on other people because she can't afford her life on her own. And when she's on a trip with an older matron, basically, she meets this guy called Mr. De Winter, or Maxime De Winter. And they strike up kind of a weird friendship, even though they have a pretty huge age gap. And when she tells him that they will leave to go to America, he suddenly proposes to her, and she decides to stay with him and go with him to his estate called Mandalay. And when she arrives there as the new bride and the new Mrs. De Winter, she realizes that the kind of ghost of his first wife, Rebecca, hasn't really left the place yet, and that she doesn't really know how to fit into this very wealthy new home. Now, this is not like a horror ghost story kind of thing, which I thought it would be. This is a domestic thriller, and if you know anything about me, I hate domestic thrillers. I think they're so boring. I just don't care. I just, you know, the idea of presenting marriage as something that is thriller material just kind of irks me. So this book was not for me, and unfortunately I did not know that going into this. Now, I read this for the Rebecca long, but this also fulfilled the prompt of the time warp for Spooktober. And yeah, I did not enjoy this book, unfortunately. I found it to be very inspiring, because when I finished it, I wanted to immediately sit down and write a ghost story retelling with Rebecca being the actual main character. But yeah, there were just some parts in here that would be spoilers, but that I just did not like at all, especially the way kind of violence against women is portrayed. And yeah, the main character, really is, difficult to follow around. She's very frustrating, she's very naive, she just wants to desperately fit into this household, and she tries basically everything, and you're just there being like, no, that's not how it works. And yeah, apart from that, I just found her priorities to be very, very strange. And this just showed me that like 30s literature is just not my thing, unfortunately, because it's just usually very sexist and sometimes also racist, even though this one was more on the sexist side. So I think in the end I gave this somewhere between 3 and 3.5 stars. It is beautifully written, I totally agree on that, but all the rest just wasn't a book for me. Then the next book I finished was an audiobook, and I finished The Deck of Omens by Christine Lynn Herman. This is the sequel to The Devouring Grey, and this is kind of like a YA horror mystery series. You're following this girl, Violet, and she moves to a new town after losing her sister, and her mom kind of decides they need a fresh start, so they go back to the place where the mom originally came from. But as soon as Violet arrives there, she realizes that in this town there's some stuff going on. And there's basically these founder children who are descendants of the original founders of the town, and they have magical powers. And then there is something in the woods that is evil, and they have to defend this town against this evil, basically. In this second book, we definitely dive even more into this kind of evil thing in the woods. And I felt like it was a very good sequel. I enjoyed it even more than the first book because I found it to be more original. Because with the first book, I felt like it was a kind of like a weird combination of stories we already know. But the second book and also the finale of this really found its own way. I really liked the way the kind of creepy wood was portrayed in this. I liked the corruption that is there, and I thought it was just a very interesting, unique spin of the like creepy dark woods trope. So if you're into these kind of things and you like these YA stories that are always a little bit more lighthearted, you have some romantic things going on. Also, a huge plus for this series is that a ton of characters are bi or bisexual. So yeah, that was great rep as well. And yeah, just a very, very fun book that I enjoyed listening to. I always like my audiobooks to be a little bit more fun and fast-paced and stuff like that. So this was perfect, and I gave it 4 stars. Then the next book I finished was Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. This I read for the Spooktober prompt to read a book that you can't stop looking at the cover of. This was the prompt for the eyeball soup, and so yeah, I chose this one because the cover is the coolest thing. It looks like an IKEA catalog from the front, but the back kind of gives you an impression of what you're gonna get in this book. So we follow our main character. What's her name? I always forget her name. Amy, maybe? Yeah, Amy, I think. She really depends on her job at this kind of IKEA knockoff store called Orsk. But she doesn't really get along with her boss very well, and she thinks he will kick her out. So when he calls her to his office, and there's also another colleague, she thinks she will be kicked out of the store, but she really needs the money. But then the boss instead offers her an opportunity to get back into his favor by staying the night in this Orsk store, because there have been some kind of weird things going on, and he thinks there is some kind of intruders that get there in the night, destroy furniture and stuff like that. So he wants to find out what's going on. So they stay for the night, these 3 people. It's 2 female colleagues and the boss, who is a black male man, and they stay there. And then there's also 2 other characters who work at the store and go back there because they want to film a documentary about ghosts there. So we have these 5 people in this store, and if you've ever been to an IKEA store, you know that this is a frightening place at night because there aren't any windows and you have just tons and tons of this kind of like furniture that is supposed to also look kind of lived in. Yeah, so they're stuck there, and obviously tons of creepy stuff happens. I was pleasantly surprised by this book. It's a very fun, quick read, and I think if you enjoy movies like Saw, this will be interesting to you, because this is not like a typical like haunted house kind of story. It's much more like kind of gross, violent, just like in that kind of Saw vein, I would say. So I had a ton of fun with this book, which I really didn't expect. I thought this was like a gimmicky idea, but yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. So I decided to give this book a 4 stars as well. I just really liked the main character of Amy. I felt like you could really identify with her. There was no one acting dumb, which is something I really don't like in horror movies or books. If, you know, people just act in a dumb way and get themselves into more trouble. I felt like the backstory was also quite interesting. It wasn't like developed like in a super great fashion, but I thought the idea behind that, I just really liked that. And I felt like this was one of the less problematic kind of backstories of a haunted place. So yeah, as I said, pleasant surprise, 4 stars. So then we get to the book that slowed me down a ton in October, and that is The Whispering Skull, which is book 2 in the Lockwood & Co. series by Jonathan Stroud. Now, I had read book 1 in the English edition 2 years ago, and I really liked it. I gave it 4.5 stars, so I was so intrigued to get to the second one, but my library only had it in the German translation, which I guess is part of the downfall of this one. I just did not feel the same connection. I felt like the characters read very young in this one. So this is kind of like lower YA. There is supposed to be a little bit of romantic tension, but I feel like if that wasn't there, this could read as a middle grade, honestly. Yeah, I felt like it wasn't as scary as the first book. I felt like the characters were just more childish, and this was just more of an adventure story and not the kind of creepy ghost story I wanted it to be. Now, obviously, you know, it's not like an adult horror, so I didn't expect it to be like super scary, but just, you know, that kind of like YA scary that I very much enjoy. So in this series we follow 3 characters. They have this agency for kind of ghost hunters, and the main guy there is called Lockwood, and he has 2 kind of assistants, a girl, and I even forgot her name by now. Lucy? Yeah, Lucy I think is the girl and George is the guy. And they try to hunt ghosts because in this world there has been kind of like a pandemic where just ghosts disappeared everywhere, and they're very dangerous. They can kill you, and only children and teenagers are able to see the ghosts, and as soon as you get to a certain age you just can't see them anymore. They're still dangerous, but you can't see them, and so you can't fight them. So this world is full of children kind of teaming up to hunt ghosts down. And yeah, with this one we follow the story of a kind of iron coffin that was found, and there was something very bad and very evil in there, and it gets lost because it was stolen. So Lockwood & Co. kind of try to go after it and find it again before it can cause too much damage. And for the kind of adventure part, this was fun, this was fine, but it just wasn't what I was, you know, there for. I felt like the kind of creepy things were very sparse in between, and also just some very short scenes. There was one part somewhere like in the middle that was quite scary, and I liked that, but yeah, overall I just couldn't get into it. It was so sad. So yeah, also there's this weird bet going on, which I felt like was very childish and just very dumb. So I don't know. This book, it was fine. It was just fine, but it slowed me down because it was a chunker and I just wasn't in the mood to pick it up. So in the end, I gave this book around a 3.5 stars because I think for what it is, it's good. It just wasn't for me. And I read this one for Spooktober for bobbing for apples because this, as I said, is a chunky book. Then I finished Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu, and this is a vampire book. This is a classic. I think it was published in the 1800s, even before Dracula was published, and it has definitely influenced Dracula, the story. In this one, we follow a main character. I think her name is Laura, and she lives with her father in a part that now would belong to Austria, in a very remote place, and they are expecting visitors, but they get a letter that they can't come because the girl that was supposed to visit has died under very mysterious circumstances. And on the same day they received this letter, there is an accident happening right before or in front of their mansion, and a girl is hurt, so they decide to take her in so she can, you know, recover from the accident. And that girl is Carmilla. And Carmilla and Laura start a friendship, but it very quickly gets weird because when Laura was a small child, she had a dream where she was visited by someone, and that person looked exactly like Carmilla looks when she meets her then. And so she is a little bit suspicious, but also really drawn into this girl because she wants to know, you know, what Carmilla is all about. And yeah, obviously, we then find out Carmilla is a vampire. And yeah, I like these kind of old school creepy stories, these kind of penny dreadfuls. I just have a soft spot for them. I think they are great. This one was a good one. I did like kind of like the characters and the chemistry. I did like that at the end we get this trope where there's another person coming to the party and he is telling his own story, and so you get the kind of story in a story, but they're very connected. I loved that about it. And yeah, just also there is this kind of sexual tension between Laura and Carmilla, so you could consider this sapphic if you wanted to. I think for the time it was very much that. Nowadays, you know, it's all just hinted at kind of. So I really enjoyed this. I gave this 4 stars. I had a good time with it. And I read this for Spooktober for the Candy Bowl, so to read something short and sweet. Then next I finished another audiobook called The Haunting of Ashburn House. This one is by Darcy Coates, and it's the second book by Darcy Coates I have listened to now. The first one being The Haunting of Blackwood House. And I must say that I did enjoy Blackwood House more. Ashburn House follows a main character. I forgot her name. I think it's Adrienne. Something like that. And she is very poor, she doesn't have any money, and she receives a letter telling her that she's inherited a house by a great aunt that she didn't even know. And so she takes her cat and she travels there, and when she gets there she realizes it's very, very far apart from the next town. It's like a very secluded kind of place. She doesn't really have electricity, like she has a little bit on the lower level of the house, but the rest doesn't have electricity and stuff like that. And there is some weird stuff happening in the woods. So this is kind of the setup, and then, you know, you get into the kind of haunted house stuff. I felt like this one it had a lot of potential, but I felt like Darcy Coates didn't play her cards right. There were a lot of these kind of typical creepy things that we expect from a haunted house, like scratchings in the walls and, you know, all kind of weird things, like there were messages that you weren't supposed to put up mirrors and stuff like that. But it was all done in a way that it didn't feel scary, because the main character didn't believe in these kind of things, and she was always like, oh yeah, right, there's the scratching on the wall. And so I didn't get scared, and I wanted it to be scary. And then also, this is not like a ghost story, it's more like a ghoul story. So yeah, I feel like they have a different feel to them, and the kind of finale, I would say, was very different from what you expect from a ghost story, which some people didn't like too much. And then also I feel like there were these dreams the main character had, and I felt like these dreams, they were too obvious. It was too obvious what's happening. So I wasn't scared because I felt like I knew exactly what was going on. And like after every dream, the main character would wake up and be like, oh, I don't remember what I dreamt, but it was like really scary. And you're like, yeah, but I know now, like, ugh. So that was kind of sad. I just wanted it to be more scary, so I would recommend reading Blackwood House instead of Ashburn House. I think it's the better book. But yeah, I gave this one 3.5 stars as well. and I read it for the scary costume for Spooktober. So then I finished We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson, and this was my only 5-star read in October. Absolutely loved this. This was also the Dark Academics Book Club pick of the month. The other one was Phantom of the Opera, but I did not read that because I wasn't interested. I only wanted to read this one. So in this story we're following two sisters who live in this big house, and their uncle also lives with them, but the whole rest of the family have been killed. They have been poisoned, and the kind of town that is nearby, they all suspect that the older sister did it. And we are following the story from Mary Cat, so the younger girl's perspective. And she is such an interesting character because she has all these kind of like spells that are supposed to protect the family and stuff like that. And yeah, that was just really interesting. And so you, during the first chapters, you get into their kind of life and you realize that their lives are very odd, very odd, but they have this kind of peacefulness around them, and then there comes a new character into this and destroys the whole peacefulness, and I could not put it down after that point. I had to power through this book because I needed to know. I wanted this character to die. I hated him with all of my heart. This was a wild ride. And if you have read this book and you like it, I would recommend the movie Mother with Jennifer Lawrence because it had a very similar feel. So if you like this kind of like psychological terror that this book can give you, I would highly recommend the movie, and vice versa. If you like the movie, maybe pick up this book because it gave me a very similar feeling of this like helplessness, and you know, you just can't get out of it. So yeah, love this. 5 stars, perfection. And I read this book to hang out with the pets for Spooktober because it has a cat on the cover. So these were all the books I finished in October. I also started 2 more books. I started The Library of the Unwritten by H.A. Hackworth, and I will talk more about this in my November vlog when I finish it. And I also started a new audiobook, Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas, and again I will talk more about that in the next vlog. But I absolutely love both of these, and yeah, as I said, I will talk more about them when I finish them, but they're very good books too. So yeah, that would be all for this wrap up. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like or a nice comment. I always appreciate those. And if you subscribe, I will talk to you soon. I hope you enjoyed the October reading stuff. Bye!